Welcome to Toffee TV as Everton continue their manager search. I am joined today by Andy The Piv. He's with me to have a chat about Carlo Ancelotti leaving and what Everton should do next in terms of the management search. So let's get into it. Andy, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, mate. Busy as usual. Hopefully, I'll be in there Thursday, but otherwise, I'm good.
we haven't done this on camera since Carlo left. So last week, last Tuesday, the news broke that he was leaving Everton. So what were your thoughts on that he was returning to Real Madrid? Were you surprised by that?
Yes and no. I was surprised after what Carlo had said, to be fair, but, at the end of the day, people I guess he wants to do what he wants to do. It's football. Unfortunately, you can't get really attached to people anymore, just the way the game is. People have always got a better offer or want, what's best for the family, as they always say, wherever it may be. In terms of, I thought, for me, I've had my reservations about Carlo for a long while, and I just always thought this job was a little too hard for him. And I'm not saying he's not a great manager, because he's one of the all-time greatest managers ever, but it's just a different type of job. And I think Real Madrid is a much more suitable job, especially what they're going to try and do next summer for him than Everton is. And I think, he was probably honest with himself, and Real Madrid suited him more. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, when we'd heard him a couple of weeks ago, haven't we? Totally dismiss it and say, I'm happy at Everton and, it's nice, it's flattering and blah, blah, blah. But obviously, things have come back full circle, and I think it's easy to say when you're not fully convinced that they want you. The minute they let it be known that they want you, it becomes a different conversation altogether. I think once we knew that it was serious, then I kind of resigned myself to the fact that he would be going. And I'll be honest, I think what made it easier for me was the fact that we weren't great last season. We were great away, results wise, but if we'd have been like third or fourth playing fantastic football, I'd have been devastated that he's going. But it is the nature, like you just said, the nature of the game, and you've got to try not to get attached to people, I guess, because this can happen. But Real Madrid for him is, I would say, is a much better fit, just because they're more likely to finish in the top three in Spain. Top 3 or 4, so he's Champions League with them anyway. Of course, they are in the Champions League as well. So Everton, it's a longer term thing, and I guess the only thing, and you kind of touched on it then, was the noises coming out of him since he's been here about how much he loves it. I think a lot of Evertonians bought into that. A lot of people, even non-Evertonians, were like, well, he really likes it there, so why would he move? But I guess the lure of Real Madrid was a bit too much for him.
I suppose there's two sides. Personally, I'm sure he did like the city, and I'm sure he did like working at Everton. I suppose it's a nice club to work for in a lot of ways. On a professional level, after what happened at Bayern Munich and what happened at Napoli, his reputation was at the elite level, I guess, was a bit on the wane. And I guess 12th and 10th at Everton, probably another season of 9th, 10th, 8th, whatever it may be. We will finish next season, maybe better, who knows. That would have really hurt him in terms of his reputation at the top level. And I'm guessing he always thought, well, either he'd get there with Everton, or alternatively, he'd get there with, another club. He'd get back there with another club if he left. So I think he's took the opportunity really to not salvage his career, because I don't think Everton was ruining his career, but I think that he can see that he won't get opportunities like that again if he continues trying to rebuild Everton, because he's not a man who rebuilds things. He's just not. I did the research before he came. Although he's obviously had a great team at AC Milan, had a great team at Real Madrid, but there was a lot of building pieces already there, and those building pieces probably aren't as there at Everton. He probably needs to do a lot more work than he did at them clubs, and with Everton and the FFP and Premier League rules, it's a bit more difficult to do it at those elite clubs with the commercial rights and whatever they have.
Yeah, very much so. We've got our own. Ours is a longer term, isn't it? It's a longer term project, really. Moving on, then he's gone, and we move on, as the football club will do. How do you think Everton should approach this next step then? Because obviously there was rumours immediately that it was Nuno from Wolves. Mm-hmm. Was coming in, and that was the fit within a day. Everton have had talks, and he's going to be announced. I've seen one news outlet reporting they'd be announced within 24 hours. That was on Wednesday, and here we are the next week, and it hasn't. A lot of names have come to the fore. Everton have been inundated with applications for the post. It seems to be a different 2 names every day. There's a lot of people who want it, and you can understand why. But how do you think Everton are best approaching this? Because since Farhad Moshiri's come in, you know, his first job, he sacked Martinez, and then he wanted a Hollywood manager. So he went for Ronald Koeman, and then that didn't quite work out. And he had his first bite at Marco Silva and couldn't get him. And Allardyce came in, and then he got Silva, and then Marcel Brands as well came in that summer. And we were all thinking, well, okay, we've got a director of football. Things might move a little bit smoother now. And Marco Silva went out the door, and Carlo Ancelotti came in after Duncan Ferguson had a little spell as caretaker. And we're back to the point now where I guess a lot of us probably didn't think we'd be at in about March, April, where we're looking for a new manager. So how do you think the club are best approaching it now? Because it doesn't seem so far like we've followed one set of rules since Farhad took over, does it?
No, and I guess every club's different because every club's got a different vision, plan, project. I'll use those in quotation marks because I know people don't always like them words, but they're your buzzwords that people use. For Everton, I don't work at Everton, so I don't exactly know what they've been doing. For me, and obviously professionally, I know that we do this for other clubs that we work with. We try to get managers year round, even though their managers are not under pressure or looking to leave. It's because you've got to be ready for those eventualities, and I'd hope Everton are doing the same. If not, at the end of the day, this is a surprise, so you're caught on your heels. So you look at it like you've got to start doing your work. And I think Everton are lucky, really, in the fact that Carlo didn't leave just before the window opened or after the Euros. He's left very early in the summer, which means we've got time. Pre-season doesn't start till, the 26th of July, roughly around there. So we've got, 26th of June. So we've got roughly 3 weeks. So I think if you take 2 weeks to find the manager, that's probably best. You need to look at every facet of it, really look at the data, look at, decisions they've made, players they've worked with, what suits the squad, have they got those players in the squad here? There's a lot of information you need to look at, and then you need to look up, teams, get your references as well, speak to ex-players, people who've worked under them. All of that stuff needs to be done. I think for me, I'm a long believer that Everton needs to look at this as a 3, 4, 5 year thing where they build. Not saying we need to finish 10th again, but if we finished 8th, 7th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, then Everton will be happy over those 5 years. I think that's what Everton needs to do, become more consistent. So I think we need to look at it in terms of that. I think the club have always looked at it as a short-term, more of a short-term idea, in the fact that we must make Europe this year, which is why we saw Carlo Ancelotti brought in to do that with James Rodriguez and Allen, the type of signings that were made to try and push Everton into that. Maybe we need to go a different way. And I think, although Carlo leaving shocked many fans, maybe it'll be just right for the club, maybe.
So with that in mind, and I totally understand that, and I get it. I get what you're saying. The club does want to be in Europe. I think if I was Farhad Moshiri and I'd put close to £500 million down, I think I'd want some reward as well. That to show for me money, because I know we can go back and say Everton have played in Europe 12 times in the last 50 years or something. So it's not as if we are European stalwarts every year we're there. But I think when he took over in 2016, he'd have looked and probably thought, well, he'd just been in Europe a couple of seasons ago. David Moyes had them in Europe a couple of times. The team was seemed to be okay. And I guess he might have thought the way we did, that the influx of money would have took us one way and one way only. And it hasn't, and it's been because of bad planning. It's been because of some poor decisions, and it's been because some players simply haven't done what they should have done and what they were brought to do. But in terms of choosing a manager now, are you hoping that this is left to Marcel Brands? Because I think that, if he's the director of football, then we need to let him direct football, surely, if that's how it's going to be, if that's the model we're using. I fully expect Farhad Moshiri to have a say in it, because after all, it is money, and we are where we are and doing what we're doing. But do you think that it should primarily, though, be Marcel Brands driving this bus in terms of who comes in next? Because I can't, even though he went with it, he did say when we appointed Carlo Ancelotti that wasn't his choice. You know, it wasn't a manager he'd have gone for. And although he kind of rubber stamped Marco Silva, I'm not 100% convinced Marco Silva would have been his choice either. So how do you see it, or how do you hope this process will play out over the next week or so?
Well, my hope is that
before.
Marcel Brands will lead the recruitment drive, I guess is what you want to call it. He will lead the recruitment drive, because him and his staff that are the ones who are going to do all the work, whether all the information finding, all the watching of games, potentially, the scouting of the manager, and then they will obviously then present it, their findings to Farhad Moshiri, Bill Kenwright, and Denise Barrett Baxendale. And I hope that with Brands' weight in the game in terms of his longevity at PSV, AZ Alkmaar, his footballing knowledge, and that's essentially what he is. He is the footballing knowledge on the board. His recommendations then taken on board. Now, I understand that Farhad has obviously put a lot of money into it. He's got every right to choose his own man. But make best use of your resources. If you're paying someone, I think Marcel Brands is on over $1 million a year. I can't remember the exact figure. But if you're paying someone a lot of money each year, then they need to make best use to them. And then we'll find out, because I think the thing with Brands is, and I think I do respect Marcel Brands massively. I think sometimes we don't know. Obviously, there's been reports that he's not, like last summer. We obviously know that James Rodriguez and Alan were Carlo Ancelotti signs. We know that Tukori and Godfrey. We've never really seen Marco Brands be that leader from the front, in the sense that he's not. There's always been either other people with the hand in the pot, I guess, or there's always been other influences on decision making. Now with his 3-year contract, maybe it's time to see him take the lead and show that he is the man to lead us for the next 5-6 years. We need to know. We can't always be, when Brands gets hold of it, then we'll know. We need to give him that license, if you will, to show us that he is the man to rebuild Everton football. Well, also not rebuild, because we don't need rebuild, but to build Everton into a team that are going to regularly challenge for honours.
Yeah, no, I agree, because otherwise, what are we paying him for? If he's not got any, if there's no reference points to judge him by, what are we paying him for? If he's director of football and he chooses the manager and the manager doesn't work, we know that he chose him. So therefore we can look at him and question him. If he chooses the manager and the manager does fantastically well, we know who we can praise in that in that thing as well, which is what it's all about. It's not so that he can be criticised a lot. It's also that he can be praised a lot, because at the minute it does feel a little bit like whose decision was this? And there's all of those questions bouncing around with Everton. Who chose this fella? Was he forced on him? Who's buying the players? Who's doing this? And I still think that. Go on. Sorry. Go on.
No. I was just going to say, I think that it's key that Everton establish hierarchical decision making flow. In terms of Farhad Moshiri owns the club, so he is obviously the top of the club. He makes the final rubber stamp decision on most things because it's his money. But then on a footballing side, it needs to flow from Farhad to Marcel, or Farhad board, Marcel manager. I think what's happened is, obviously I'm not privy to the conversations, but when Farhad hires a manager who's such as Carlo Ancelotti with such a name, instead of being under Marcel and in that sort of flow, they become side by side really. And it's like, you can have one of your signs, you can have one of that for me doesn't work. I think in the director of football model, the director of football has to be the one who sort of leads the football side of the club, and with the manager / coach, as it will be now, obviously under his remit.
Yeah, and by all accounts, I mean that this is kind of what's being leaked to the press at the moment. That Brands is kind of driving it and stuff. So hopefully Everton will get this right, because it's a crucial appointment, isn't it? This one, because if we get it wrong again, where do we go from here? And what's frustrating, I think, and what frustrates a lot of Evertonians is we see other clubs seemingly not finding it difficult to move forward, and yet we've had all the resources and we've stood still, really. It's a bit of a mad one, isn't
it? I guess we're still chasing our tails from that 17-18 summer where we bought those players, and I think because we spent so much that summer, don't get me wrong, Everton benefited massively from being able to sell John Stones, Romelu Lukaku, Ross Barkley, because they give us that, the platform under the rules to be able to spend all that money. I think when we made, not mistakes, because I think we've got, some mistakes, some were we didn't get the full value out of the signs, but we still got good minutes out of Gylfi Sigurdsson and Michael Keane. They've been contributors at the end of the day. I think that we lack a lot of assets. We don't have, apart from, I think, we had Onyekuru, we had Vlasic, we had Luchman, maybe Gay. Apart from those, we don't really have those assets on the fringe of the squad. If you look at other squads around, they always seem to have players who they don't mind selling it. They can get 10, 15 million pounds for. I think we lack a lot of that. Our players on the fringe of the squad, we can't really move them out, and it's because some sort of a blockage really in bringing players in. I think we do need to look to sort of bring in more assets. I'm not advocating sign 10 Moise Keanes, because we shouldn't do that. That was a risk we're taking. He was a young lad, but we need to be smart on the transfer market and find players who I think Rory Smith said, and I've said it before, Everton should be the Sevilla of the Premier League in terms of bringing players in, selling players on, but also being around those top 4 positions and fighting for trophies in Europe. That should be the dream. That's hopefully what we become, but I think that it's going to take just a little bit more time, and it depends. Obviously, the manager would be the first protocol in terms of starting that again.
Right, I know you're busy, and I know you've got stuff on. But before you go, then, if you were choosing today to be Everton's next manager, and it was up to you, you've got one choice. Don't give me a top 3 or whatever. You just have to pick one man who you think would get Everton going in the right direction and play a bit better football than what we watched last season. Which man would that be for you?
Well, I know people have been asking me this for days on Twitter and stuff, and I thought I didn't want to say because I haven't done it. But I've told you before. I think for me, I think balancing all the ideas and everything. I think Lucien Favre, who was at Dortmund last season, would be the man. If you look at his record when he was at Nice and Gladbach, he turned them around very quickly into clubs that could sort of fight for European places, both got in the Champions League under him. Dortmund, first 2 years, pretty good. Last season didn't work out, but I don't think Everton will be shopping for managers who've just won the European Cup. So we need to be serious. I think he can balance the fact that we need to build the squad, but also he can make players work hard and overachieve as well. And I think that's what Everton need to get into those European places as well. So I think he'd give us a foundation for 2 years in which we could get those right players in. So maybe when after those 2 years, maybe 3 years, the next man can come in ready with a better squad. I think that's the issue with Everton's squad currently. It's a bit ill-fitting for, your likes of Sarri, your likes of Fonseca. Don't get me wrong, I like these managers and I think they do well if they give them time. But it's going to be a difficult initial period for them because they haven't got those players who can play that possession attacking football. I think Favre can work with players quite well and turn players and get the best out of them quite quickly. He might be able to salvage some players for us, in fact. So he would be my choice, I think.
Interesting, very interesting. I did like watching Dortmund under him. He was they were excellent under him. Nice one, and anyway, it's going to be an interesting week. I know you are in later in the week, so we'll either continue this in more detail with some of the other names that have been bouncing around, or we may know who is the new manager of Everton and we can have a closer look. Thanks very much for joining us, Andy. Pleasure, as always, mate, to talk to you.
Speak soon. See you soon, guys.
See you soon. So there you go. There you go. More stuff going on. We're still no closer, are we, at the moment, at the time of recording this, to Everton naming the new manager. But who do you think Everton should go for, and how do you think Everton should do this process? Should it simply be Marcel Brands, or has Farhad Moshiri got every right to choose the next man? Let me know in the comments section below. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and if you want more videos, join us over on Patreon. See you later.